The universe ends and begins in the same moment. Emperor Mark Grayson, 500 years old, ruler of the Viltrumite Empire, conqueror of 17 galaxies, stands before the reboot entities in their non-space between dimensions. They are massive, incomprehensible, blue tentacles that exist in angles reality wasn't meant to bend toward. You have seen what you become, the entities say without mouths. Their voice is the sound of stars collapsing. You conquered, you ruled, you destroyed everything worth protecting in the name of protection. Mark doesn't argue. Can't argue, he's lived it. Watched everyone he loved age and die while he remained. Debbie, Eve, Oliver, even his father eventually. All dead while Emperor Mark sat on a throne built from the bones of civilizations he'd saved. I want to fix it, Mark says. Send me back. Let me do it right this time. You will not remember being sent back, the entities warn. You will simply be an infant again, with 500 years of memory compressed into a brain that hasn't learned object permanence. I don't care. I'll adapt. You will suffer. I've earned it, the entities swirl. Consider, then, very well, but understand, every change you make creates new variables, new consequences. You may save your world and doom it in the same action. We will not intervene again. I understand. The light comes. Blinding. Absolute. Mark's consciousness, 500 years of war, love, loss, and empire, is ripped from his adult body and compressed into a singularity of pure information, then hurled backward through time. The impact is catastrophic. Mark's consciousness slams into the infant body like a planet-killer asteroid hitting atmosphere. The sensory deprivation is immediate and total and absolutely horrifying. He tries to scream. His mouth opens, but the sound that comes out is garbled crying. Baby sounds. Meaningless. He tries to move his arm. It flails uselessly, uncoordinated, fingers spreading and clenching without purpose. The motor control he spent 500 years perfecting is gone. He's piloting a meat puppet with no training manual. He tries to focus his vision. The world is a blur of shapes and colors. No depth perception, no detail. Just vague masses of light and dark that his infant brain can't process into coherent images. No, 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 no. Real panic. The kind he hasn't felt since his first battle. His first near-death experience. The first time he realized he could actually die. Except this is worse. This is being buried alive in a body that won't obey. A prison of soft bones and undeveloped neural pathways. He tries to access his powers. Flight. Super strength. Anything. Nothing happens. Because the Viltrumite DNA is there. He can feel it, dormant, coiled in every cell. But it won't activate for years. Decades, maybe. He's completely, utterly human right now. Breathe. Think. You've survived worse. Except he hasn't. He's conquered galaxies, but he's never been this helpless. Never been this vulnerable. Slowly, agonizingly, Mark forces his infant eyes to focus. The blurs start to resolve. Shapes become objects. A mobile hanging above him. Cartoon animals spinning slowly, a ceiling, walls. He knows this room, his childhood bedroom. The walls are beige. They'll be repainted blue when he's 7. He knows because he lived this, once, in another timeline, in another life. The door opens. Light spills in from the hallway. 2 figures enter. Mark's infant eyes can't see details yet, but he knows them by their shapes, by their voices. "Hey, little guy," his mother says. Debbie Grayson, younger than Mark remembers. Her hair is darker, longer, no gray yet, no stress lines around her eyes. This is Debbie before the Omni-Man revelation. Before the trauma. Can't sleep? His father enters behind her. Nolan Grayson. Omni-Man, the man who will, in 17 years, walk into Guardian headquarters with the intention of murdering his teammates. The man who will beat Mark nearly to death in downtown Chicago to prove humans are like pets. But this Nolan is different, younger. He still smiles easily, still plays the role of perfect husband and father with genuine warmth. He hasn't activated his mission yet, doesn't know his son will manifest powers, doesn't know the trigger that will turn him from hero to monster. Nolan reaches into the crib and lifts Mark up. The sensation is terrifying, being moved without control, completely at someone else's mercy. But Nolan's grip is gentle, practiced. He's held Mark like this 1,000 times already. "There we go, champ," Nolan says. His voice is soft, warm. The voice of a father, not a Viltrumite soldier. "What's wrong? Bad dreams?" Mark stares into his father's eyes with an infant's unfocused gaze. Inside, the Emperor is making calculations, processing, planning. He doesn't know the Empire sent him here decades ago, told him to integrate, wait. When I manifest powers, proof that Earth is viable for Viltrumite breeding, that's his trigger. That's when he activates. I have 17 years. 17 years to prepare, to train, to become strong enough to stop what's coming. But first, Mark needs to survive being an infant. Debbie takes him from Nolan's arms, rocks him gently, hums a lullaby Mark remembers from his original childhood. The melody is familiar, but the memory is strange now, listening to it with 500 years of context. Understanding that this moment, this simple maternal comfort, is something he'll watch die and rebuild and destroy and mourn 100 times over. He's so alert, Debbie says. Look at his eyes. It's like he's really seeing us. He's a smart kid, Nolan agrees, takes after his old man. Debbie carries Mark to the changing table. The indignity of being changed is something the Emperor part of his mind tries to reject, but the infant body demands it. He forces himself to accept it, to endure. This is his reality now. When Debbie finishes and picks him up again, Mark forces his tiny hand to close around her finger. It takes concentration. The motor control is difficult, like operating a crane with mittens, but he manages it. Debbie's face lights up. Nolan, look, he's gripping. Strong grip too. Nolan observes. There's something in his voice. Pride, but also assessment. Even now, even this young, Nolan is watching for signs, evaluating, wondering if his half-breed son will be viable. Watch all you want, Mark thinks. I'll give you exactly what you expect, until the day I don't. Debbie carries Mark back to his crib, lays him down gently, tucks the blanket around him, kisses his forehead. Sweet dreams, baby. She leaves the light on, a soft nightlight in the corner. She and Nolan exit, closing the door most of the way. Not all the way, never all the way. They want to hear if he cries. Mark lies in his crib, staring at the ceiling, and begins his first real assessment. Okay, inventory. I'm an infant, maybe 3 months old, based on the motor control. I have 500 years of memory and knowledge compressed into a brain that's still forming. I have Viltrumite DNA that won't fully activate for years. I have a father who's a sleeper agent for a genocidal empire. I have 17 years until the trigger point. What are my assets? Knowledge. I know what's coming. Every threat, every disaster, the Flaxons, the Sequids, Angstrom Levy's accident, Robot's eventual coup, the Viltrumite war. I can prevent all of it if I can survive being helpless long enough to act. I need a plan. Mark forces his infant body to turn its head, looks at the mobile spinning above his crib, focuses on making his eyes track the movement. It's exhausting. The neural pathways aren't built for this kind of conscious control, but he manages it. Step 1. Survive infancy without revealing I'm aware. Can't be a genius baby. Can't speak too early or walk too early or show any signs I'm not normal. Nolan is watching, always watching. Any deviation from expected development could trigger questions I can't answer. Step 2. Begin physical training the moment it's safe. Viltrumite powers activate under stress. Combat. Survival pressure. I need to start pushing this body to its limits as soon as I have enough motor control. But secretly. Always secretly. Step 3. Build intelligence networks. I can't stop everything myself. I need Cecil. The GDA, I need to feed them information without revealing my source. Make them see the threats before the threats arrive. Step 4. When I manifest my powers at 17, it needs to look natural. Expected. Nolan needs to think everything is going according to plan, right up until the moment I break him. Mark's infant body is exhausted from the mental effort. His eyes start to close. He fights it but loses. Sleep takes him. In his dreams, he's emperor again, sitting on his throne, alone, always alone. The months pass in a crawl of helpless frustration. Mark learns to endure the indignities of infancy, the diaper changes, the feedings, the complete lack of autonomy. His adult mind rails against it, but his infant body demands it. He forces himself to accept, to wait. He meets every developmental milestone exactly on schedule. Not early, that would raise questions. Not late, that would concern his parents. He smiles at 3 months, laughs at 4, sits up at 6, crawls at 8. Every achievement carefully calculated to appear natural. At night, when Debbie checks on him, he lies perfectly still, breathes evenly, pretends to sleep, and when she leaves, he practices. He forces his infant hands to grip the crib rails, to pull, to strain, building strength that shouldn't exist in a baby. The Viltrumite DNA is dormant, but it's there, waiting. Every micro tear in developing muscle fiber is a signal, a trigger. Wake up, grow stronger, prepare. By his first birthday, Mark can stand in his crib, can grip the bars hard enough to leave marks in the wood. Debbie thinks he's just an energetic baby. Nolan watches with approval. The strength is good, a sign the hybrid genetics are viable. They have no idea what they're watching develop. Mark's first birthday party is a performance. Neighbors, family friends, Nolan's guardian teammates. The immortal is there, ancient and kind, making funny faces at baby Mark. War Woman brings a stuffed animal. Red Rush moves too fast and accidentally scares Mark, who cries on cue. Debbie films everything on a camcorder. Nolan stands behind her, arm around her waist, playing the proud father. Mark sits in a high chair, cake smeared on his face, and watches the Guardians. In the original timeline, Nolan killed them in 17 years. Red Rush died first, skull crushed while moving at super speed. Darkwing, War Woman, Green Ghost, Martian Man, Aquarius. The immortal last because he was hardest to kill. Not this time. This time I'm going to save them, even if it means becoming something worse than what I was. Mark smashes his cake with tiny fists and laughs. The Guardians laugh with him. They have no idea the infant they're cooing at has already killed thousands, has ruled an empire, has watched civilizations burn. That night, after everyone leaves, Mark lies in his crib and makes a vow. I will let you play father for 17 years. You'll believe I'm your innocent son. You'll watch me grow and think everything is proceeding according to your mission parameters. And when the time comes when you walk into that room to murder your friends, I'll be waiting, and I'll show you what your son became. Mark clenches his tiny fist. It doesn't glow, won't glow for years. But underneath the infant skin, in the marrow of developing bones, Viltrumite DNA stirs, responds to the will pressing against it. Waiting. 3 years pass. To the world, Mark Grayson is a normal toddler, energetic, bright, maybe a little advanced for his age. He speaks in full sentences at 2.5, reads simple books at 3. But nothing supernatural, nothing that would raise alarms. At night, he's something else entirely. Mark waits until 2:17 a.m. He's memorized his parents' sleep schedule down to the minute. Debbie is a deep sleeper, doesn't wake unless there's sustained noise. Nolan pretends to sleep, but actually enters a Viltrumite rest state, consciousness active but body recovering. But Nolan's hearing, while superhuman, isn't omnidirectional. He focuses on threats. A toddler moving around his room doesn't register as danger. Mark climbs out of bed with perfect silence. No stumbling, no childish clumsiness. His motor control is far beyond what it should be. 3 years of secret practice have given him coordination that would baffle pediatricians. He opens his bedroom window, slowly, carefully, stopping whenever the old frame creaks. Slips outside into the backyard. The grass is cold under his bare feet. The night air is crisp. Mark walks to the tree line at the edge of the property. Looks back at the house. All dark, all quiet. Then he begins. Push-ups. His 3-year-old arms shake, but he forces them to hold. 1, 2, 3. His muscles scream, but he doesn't stop. 10, 15, 20. Squats, deep and controlled. Viltrumite genetics favor explosive power. He needs to build the foundation now, before the powers fully activate. Sprints. Back and forth across the yard, barefoot and silent, pushing his small body to speeds that would alarm any adult watching. But no one's watching, just the stars. After an hour, Mark's body is trembling, exhausted. A normal 3-year-old would collapse. Mark forces himself through 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes of pushing past human limitations. 5 more minutes of telling his Viltrumite DNA to wake up. At 3:27 a.m., he climbs back through his window, closes it carefully, crawls into bed. By 3:30, his breathing is even and normal. When Debbie checks on him at 6:45 a.m., he's fast asleep, cherubic and innocent. This becomes his routine, every night, for years. Mark is 8 years old when he makes his first real move. He's been studying Cecil Stedman for 2 years, learning the man's patterns, psychology, security protocols. Cecil is paranoid, brilliant, utterly ruthless when Earth's safety is at stake. He's also always looking for advantages, for assets, for intelligence. Perfect. Mark sits at the family computer. It's 2008, the internet is still relatively primitive, and begins to work. His fingers move across the keyboard with speed that would shock anyone watching. But no one is. Debbie is at the grocery store. Nolan is at Guardian headquarters. Mark has 90 minutes. He accesses the GDA's encrypted communication network using techniques that won't be developed for another 15 years. Exploits and security protocols that don't officially exist yet. Backdoors he learned about after conquering the organization in his original timeline. The firewall collapses like tissue paper. Mark types a message, routes it through 17 proxy servers across 4 continents, and sends it to Cecil's personal terminal. Director Stedman, the Flaxen Dimension will open a portal in Chicago on March 15, 2008, at 3:47 p.m. Prepare hazmat countermeasures. Their atmosphere is incompatible with Earth biology. This is not a joke. This is not a test. This is a warning from someone who wants to help. A friend. Mark erases all evidence of his digital presence, closes the browser, clears the cache. By the time Debbie returns with groceries, he's in the living room playing with action figures. March 15th arrives. Cecil Stedman stands in the GDA command center, surrounded by tactical teams in sealed hazmat suits. It's 3:45 p.m. 2 minutes until the predicted invasion time. Sir, an analyst says, "Are you sure about this? We've deployed significant resources based on an anonymous tip." The tip predicted the exact time and location, Cecil says, cigar unlit between his fingers. It warned about atmospheric incompatibility, something we wouldn't have thought to check. Either this is the most elaborate hoax in history, or someone out there knows things they shouldn't. 3:47 p.m., the air in downtown Chicago tears open, a portal. Exactly as predicted. Flaxen soldiers pour through, wearing breathing apparatus, carrying energy weapons. They expect primitive resistance, panic, easy conquest. Instead, GDA teams in sealed armor are waiting. The Guardians are there, Omni-Man, Immortal, War Woman, the whole team, and they have atmospheric analysis data. They know the Flaxen's weakness. The battle is over in 6 minutes. 70 lives saved that would have died in the original timeline. Cecil watches the after-action footage and makes a note. Whoever a friend is, they just earned credibility. 2 days later, another message arrives. Director Stedman, the elephant member of your auxiliary superhero roster, is being blackmailed by the Mauler twins. They have evidence of tax fraud from his civilian identity. He's planning to sabotage your Detroit facility in exchange for their silence. Check his financials. You have 1 week. A friend. The elephant is arrested quietly. Another disaster prevented. The pattern continues. Perfect intelligence. 0 mistakes, no demands for payment or recognition. Just warnings. Just help. Cecil starts calling the source Deep Throat in classified briefings. He assigns his best analysts to track the origin. They find nothing. Ghost signals. Dead ends. In the Grayson household, 8-year-old Mark does his homework and smiles. Mark is 11 when he breaks his arm for the first time. It's deliberate. He's been training every night for 8 years. His body is developing strength and coordination far beyond normal. But he can feel the Viltrumite DNA inside him, dormant, waiting for the right trigger. Viltrumite powers don't just manifest at puberty. They're activated by stress, survival pressure, combat, the body realizing it needs to evolve or die. Mark needs to push harder. He's in the woods near his house, a forest preserve 3 miles from home. He ran here 3 miles in 14 minutes. A human 11-year-old couldn't do that. Mark barely broke a sweat. He stands at the edge of a ravine, 30-foot drop to rocks below. In his original timeline, he didn't manifest obvious powers until 17. But he suspects that's because he never pushed hard enough, never gave his body a reason to activate early. Time to test that theory. Mark steps off the edge. The fall takes less than 2 seconds. The impact is catastrophic. His left arm hits first, taking the full force. The radius shatters, the ulna fractures, pain explodes through his nervous system. A normal child would scream, would go into shock, would need immediate medical attention or risk death. Mark bites down on the leather strap he brought for exactly this purpose, makes no sound except a muffled grunt, and watches. His arm is bent at an unnatural angle, the bone is displaced. But as he watches, really watches, with 500 years of medical knowledge, He can see something happening beneath the skin. The healing has already started. Faster than human. Not instant, not the way it will be when his powers fully activate, but accelerated. The broken bone is already beginning to knit. Mark's Viltrumite DNA is waking up. He sets the bone himself, uses a fallen branch as a splint, wraps it with the bandages he brought. The pain is incredible but manageable. He's felt worse, been disemboweled by conquest, had his spine broken by Thrag. This is nothing. Mark walks home, 3 miles, arm in a makeshift splint, arrives at 11:47 p.m., climbs through his window, sleeps. In the morning, Debbie finds him making breakfast with one arm, sees the splint. "Mark, what happened?" "Fell off my bike yesterday," Mark says, voice perfectly calibrated to sound embarrassed. "Didn't want to worry you. It's not that bad." X-rays show a clean fracture, already beginning to heal. The doctor is impressed by how well Mark said it himself. Says he's a lucky kid, if only they knew. By the next week, the arm is completely healed. Debbie thinks he's just a fast healer. Nolan notices, files the information away. The hybrid is showing promising genetic markers. Mark adds bone breaking to his training regimen. Mark is 13 when he perfects his deception. 8th grade, captain of the baseball team. Straight-A student, popular but not too popular. The perfect, normal teenage boy. At lunch, his friend Josh asks, "Dude, is it just me or has your dad been looking at you weird lately?" Mark has noticed. Nolan's been watching him during dinner, during their backyard catches, during family movie nights, studying, assessing, waiting. Because Mark is 13. In the original timeline, powers manifested at 17, but the activation window can vary by several years. Nolan is watching for early signs. "Nah," Mark says, perfectly casual. He's just being weird, parent stuff. But that night in the forest, Mark tests himself. He jumps, not falling, a deliberate, explosive leap. Clears 60 feet horizontally, lands in a crouch that would shatter human leg bones. His legs absorb the impact with barely a tremor. Mark's powers are activating slowly, carefully, under his complete control. 4 more years, he thinks. I'll keep playing weak, keep hiding, and when I manifest at 17, exactly on schedule, you'll think everything is going according to plan. You have no idea what's coming, Dad. Mark practices his flight next, lifts off the ground 3 inches, wobbles, falls, tries again, 5 inches, more stable. By the time he's 14, he can fly. By 15, he can move faster than sound. By 16, he's breaking mountains in the desert where no satellites can see. And every single day, at school, at home, with friends, he's the perfect normal kid. The son Nolan thinks he raised. The boy who doesn't know what he is yet. The deception is total. Mark wakes up on his 17th birthday to the smell of pancakes. March 7th, 2017. The day everything is supposed to change. Debbie is in the kitchen making his favorite breakfast. Chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream. The same breakfast she made in the original timeline. Every detail is identical. Nolan sits at the table reading the newspaper. He looks up when Mark enters, smiles. "Happy birthday, champ. 17, that's a big one." "Thanks, Dad." Mark sits down, eats his pancakes, makes small talk about school, about college applications, about the baseball team's chances this season. Normal father-son conversation. But underneath, both of them are waiting, watching, for different reasons. Nolan is waiting for the activation. For the moment Mark's powers manifest and prove Earth is viable for Viltrumite genetics. Mark is waiting to spring the trap he's spent 17 years building. After breakfast, Mark goes to school, takes a biology test, eats lunch with his friends, goes to baseball practice, hits 3 home runs. The coach jokes that he's getting stronger every day. If only he knew. At 4:30 p.m., Mark drives to the junkyard on the outskirts of town, the same junkyard where he discovered his powers in the original timeline. He parks his car, walks into the maze of crushed vehicles and rusted metal. This is where it happens, where the deception becomes reality. Mark approaches a pile of crushed cars. In the original timeline, he tried to move one and accidentally threw it 100 feet. Today, he needs to recreate that exact moment, make it look natural, spontaneous, unexpected. He's been practicing this for months. Mark grabs the car, pretends to strain, then with perfect control disguised as accidental force, hurls it across the lot. The vehicle flies 90 feet before crashing into a stack of scrap metal. Mark stares at his hands, makes his face show shock, confusion, wonder. Inside, the Emperor is coldly amused. Performance of a lifetime. He tests flight next, lifts off the ground awkwardly, wobbles like he doesn't know how to control it. Nearly falls. This is the hard part. He's been flying for 3 years, moving at supersonic speeds. But now he has to pretend he's clumsy, new to this. Mark bounces off a rusty container, crashes into a pile of tires, catches himself before actually hitting, makes it look messy. Good enough. Now for the finale. Mark flies toward home. Deliberately sloppy trajectory, bouncing off tree branches, overcorrecting, making it look like he can barely control his new abilities. He approaches his house from the back, lines up with his bedroom window, and crashes through it in a shower of breaking glass. Debbie screams from downstairs. Footsteps pound up the stairs. Nolan arrives first, bursting through the door. Mark stands in the wreckage of his room, glass everywhere, breathing hard, eyes wide with manufactured confusion. Dad, I think I have powers. Nolan's face goes through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, joy, pride, and underneath, visible only to someone who spent 17 years learning to read Viltrumite micro-expressions, calculation. The trigger has been pulled. That night, Nolan takes Mark flying. They soar over the city, and Nolan gives him the speech, the one about responsibility, about legacy, about what it means to be special, different, powerful. Mark listens with perfect teenage enthusiasm, asks the right questions, shows excitement mixed with nervousness. He's rehearsed this conversation for 17 years. I want you to meet the Guardians, Nolan says. The team needs new blood, young heroes. I think you'd be perfect. Really? That would be amazing. In the original timeline, Nolan killed the Guardians 2 weeks after Mark got powers. The timeline is still intact. Everything is proceeding exactly as expected. Good. Let him think he's in control. Let him think I'm the naive son he can mold. They land on the roof of the Grayson house. Nolan puts his hand on Mark's shoulder. I'm proud of you, son. You're going to do great things. Thanks, Dad. You have no idea how right you are. Mark spends the next week pretending to learn how to use his powers. Nolan teaches him the basics: flight, strength control, landing techniques. Mark plays the eager student, makes mistakes, shows improvement at exactly the rate a new superhero would. At night, alone, he flies into the upper atmosphere and practices techniques Nolan hasn't taught him yet, wouldn't teach him yet, won't teach him for years. Mark pushes himself to Mach 5, tests his maximum lifting capacity, practices precision strikes against asteroids. He's not preparing for the future anymore. The future is now. On March 14th, 1 week after his manifestation, Mark sits in his room and composes a message. It goes to the Immortal, not to Cecil. That would be too obvious. The Immortal is the leader of the Guardians. If anyone will take the threat seriously, it's him. Mark types on an encrypted channel he built into the GDA network years ago. Immortal. This is Deep Throat. You know my intelligence is reliable. I've been feeding the GDA information for 9 years. Never wrong. Not once. Now I need you to listen carefully. The Guardians of the Globe are scheduled to die in 7 days, March 21st. Omni-Man is the killer. He is not who he claims to be. This is not a joke. This is not a test. You have 7 days to prepare or evacuate. This is the only warning you will receive. Mark sends the message, erases all traces. Then he waits. The Immortal receives the message at 3:17 a.m. He's been alive for 3,000 years. He survived the fall of empires, the rise of tyrants, wars that killed millions. He's learned that paranoia keeps you breathing. But this is insane. Omni-Man is his friend, his teammate, the most trusted hero on Earth. The Immortal almost deletes the message. Almost. But Deep Throat has never been wrong. 9 years of perfect intelligence, saved thousands of lives, never asked for anything in return. At 8 a.m., the Immortal calls an emergency meeting, shows the message to the team. The reactions are what he expects. War Woman laughs. This is ridiculous. Nolan wouldn't. He could kill us all whenever he wanted, Red Rush points out, vibrating with nervous energy. Why would he wait? It doesn't make sense. But the Immortal doesn't laugh. He's watching Omni-Man's face. Nolan looks shocked, concerned. Perfect, confused hero expression. Too perfect. I think we should take this seriously, the Immortal says. You can't be serious, Darkwing says. This is obviously some villain trying to divide us. Deep Throat has been feeding the GDA intelligence for 9 years. The Immortal says, perfect intelligence, never wrong, not once. If Deep Throat says Omni-Man is a threat, we need to consider the possibility. Nolan speaks for the first time. His voice is hurt. Betrayed. You actually think I could, but I'm not dismissing this out of hand. We're changing our protocols. No one goes anywhere alone. We're varying our schedules, and we're alerting Cecil. This is paranoid, War Woman says. Paranoid keeps you alive. The meeting ends in tension. The team disperses. Trust has been fractured. Nolan flies home in silence. His face is unreadable. Inside, he's calculating, recalculating. Someone knows. Someone has been watching. Someone is warning his targets. The mission is compromised. He needs to accelerate the timeline. March 21st, the day Nolan was scheduled to kill the Guardians. He calls a meeting at Guardian headquarters, says he has something important to discuss. The team agrees, despite the tension from the previous week. But this time, they're ready. The Immortal has alerted Cecil. 3 tactical teams are on standby. The Guardians are wearing hidden trackers, recording devices. They're treating this like a potential combat situation. At 9 p.m., the Guardians assemble in their conference room. Everyone present except Omni-Man. They're positioned carefully, not casual, tactical formation. The door opens. Nolan walks in. He's wearing his Guardian uniform, smiling. But the smile doesn't reach his eyes. Thanks for meeting on short notice, Nolan says. The Immortal's hand is on his weapon. What did you want to discuss? Nolan's smile fades. For a moment, just one moment, genuine regret crosses his face. I'm sorry, he says quietly. The Empire, he doesn't finish. Because the lights cut out. Emergency power activates. Red lighting, and when the Guardians' eyes adjust, they realize they're not in the conference room anymore. They're 3 levels down, in the combat training center. And they're not alone. Standing in the center of the room, arms crossed, wearing a crude homemade costume, blue and yellow like a teenager made it in his garage, is Mark Grayson. Invincible. But his eyes aren't a teenager's eyes. Nolan stares at his son. Mark, what are you doing here? I told you to stay home. This is Guardians of the Globe business? Mark's voice is flat, emotionless. No, Dad. This is Viltrumite Empire business. You were about to kill them. I know. I've always known. Nolan's face goes completely blank. Alien, the mask of humanity dropping away. How? I know about the Scourge virus. I know there are fewer than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left. I know the Empire sent you here 40 years ago to assess Earth for conquest. I know your orders were to wait until I manifested powers, proof of genetic viability, then eliminate Earth's primary defenders and prepare for occupation. Nolan is completely still. The Guardians are backing away, unsure who to fight. I know, Mark continues, because I lived through this before. I spent 500 years ruling the Empire you serve, and then I was sent back to fix my mistakes. The Immortal's axe is in his hand now. War Woman's mace is charged. They're ready. Nolan speaks, one word in a voice the Guardians have never heard. Cold, ancient, deadly. How? Mark smiles. It's not a nice smile. Because Dad, in the original timeline, you killed them tonight. Took you 6 minutes, Red Rush died first. You crushed his skull while he was moving at super speed. Then Darkwing, War Woman, Green Ghost, Martian Man, Aquarius. You saved the Immortal for last because he was hardest to kill. Red Rush flinches. Those are exactly the tactics he would use. Then you went home, Mark continues. Acted confused, played the grieving teammate. For months, you manipulated me, trained me, until finally you told me the truth on a rooftop. Tried to make me understand that humans are like pets. Nolan's fists clench. And I fought you. I was weak, 17 years old with powers I'd had for 2 weeks. You beat me within an inch of my life, destroyed half of Chicago, killed thousands to prove your point. Mark's voice goes colder. But here's what you don't know. After you left, I got stronger. I killed Conquest. I killed Thrag. I became Emperor. I ruled for 500 years. I became everything the Viltrumite Empire wanted me to be. He stops directly in front of his father. And then I realized I'd become a monster. So I made a deal. Got sent back, and now I'm going to do this right. Nolan moves, swings at Mark's head with enough force to pulverize mountains. Mark catches the punch, the impact creates a shock wave that cracks the walls. The Guardians scatter. Father and son hover in the center of the room, fist against palm, staring at each other. "You caught that," Nolan says. His voice is different now, confused, afraid. "You've had powers for 2 weeks. You shouldn't be able to." "I've had powers for 6 years," Mark interrupts. "I just hid them. While you were playing house with Mom, I was training. Every night. Breaking bones. Testing limits. Becoming the weapon you wanted me to be." Mark releases Nolan's fist. Steps back. "But I'm not fighting you tonight. Not here. Not like this." "Then what?" "Tonight I'm offering you a choice." Mark's voice is formal now, imperial. "You were sent here to conquer Earth, but the empire you serve is dying. Thrag is a tyrant who will eventually purge anyone he sees as a threat, including you." Mark gestures to the Guardians. "These people aren't pets. They're defenders. They protect their home with everything they have. In my original timeline, you killed them. It broke something in you. You spent years trying to justify it. So here's the choice. Try to complete your mission. Attack them. Try to kill me. You'll fail. I've killed opponents that would destroy you. Or walk away. Tonight. Go to the safe house in Vermont. Think about what I've said. And in 3 days, I'll come find you. Alone. Just father and son, and I'll show you exactly what the Empire sent you here to become." Then Nolan speaks. 3 days. 3 days, Mark confirms. Nolan looks at the Guardians one last time. The Immortal has his axe raised. War Woman's mace is charged. They're ready to die fighting. "I'm sorry," Nolan says. Then he turns and flies through the ceiling, punches a hole straight up through 10 floors of reinforced concrete. The sound of his departure fades. Everyone turns to Mark. "So," the Immortal says carefully, "want to explain what the hell just happened?" Mark looks at the Guardians. At Cecil's satellite feed, he knows the director is watching. At the future he's trying to build. "I need to speak with Director Stedman," Mark says, "and then I need to have a very difficult conversation with my mother." He turns to the Immortal. "Thank you for trusting Deep Throat's message. You saved your team's lives tonight." "You've been, for 9 years," Mark confirms. "I've been protecting this planet since I was 8 years old, and I'm not going to stop now." The GDA debriefing lasts 6 hours. Mark sits in a sterile interrogation room 3 levels below the Pentagon, surrounded by people who want answers. Cecil Stedman, the Immortal, War Woman, a dozen analysts recording every word, cameras capturing every micro-expression. Cecil lights his cigar, against regulations, but no one's going to stop him right now, and leans back in his chair. "Let me make sure I understand," Cecil says. His voice is deliberately calm, controlled. "You're claiming to be a time traveler, 500 years from the future, where you ruled the Viltrumite Empire." "Not claiming," Mark corrects, stating. "And you've been manipulating global intelligence networks since you were 8 years old, feeding me information, preventing disasters, building toward this moment." "Yes, and your father, Omni-Man, Earth's greatest hero, is actually a sleeper agent sent here to conquer the planet." "Prove it." Mark pulls out a flash drive from his pocket, slides it across the table. This contains detailed information about every major threat Earth will face in the next 20 years. Flaxan invasion patterns, Sequid biology, Angstrom-Levy's multiversal research and how to prevent his accident, Robot's psychological profile and long-term strategic planning, Viltrumite combat weaknesses, everything. Cecil doesn't touch the drive yet. "And why would you give me this?" "Because you and I spent years fighting each other instead of fighting the real threats. Because I watched you make compromises that destroyed your soul, and I watched myself make choices that turned me into a monster." Mark leans forward. "I'm giving you the chance to save Earth without losing your humanity, but it requires you to trust me." The Immortal speaks up. "How do we know you're not a Viltrumite spy yourself? This could all be an elaborate infiltration. If I were a spy, the Guardians would be dead," Mark says flatly. "Nolan was about to kill you tonight. I stopped him. That should count for something." War Woman crosses her arms. "You say you've been Deep Throat for 9 years. Prove that too." Mark looks directly at her. March 15th, 2008, Chicago. "Flaxan invasion. I predicted the exact time and location. Warned about atmospheric incompatibility. Saved 70 lives. June 2009. The elephant, blackmail Detroit facility sabotage. I warned Cecil he was arrested quietly. Should I continue? I have 9 years of intelligence drops, every single one documented in GDA files. Cecil's jaw tightens. He's already verified this. His analysts have been cross-referencing Deep Throat's messages for the past 6 hours. Every prediction was accurate. Every warning was actionable. 0 failures. Okay, Cecil says slowly. Let's say I believe you're Deep Throat. That still doesn't prove you're from the future. Something that takes decades to learn. He settles into a combat stance. The immortal recognizes it immediately. His eyes widen. That's the Dakari technique, the immortal says quietly. Ancient Viltrumite martial art. Lost when most practitioners died in the Scourge virus. Only the oldest Viltrumites still remember it. Every movement precise. Textbook. Impossible for a 17-year-old who manifested powers 2 weeks ago. I was taught by the elder Viltrumites after I took the throne, Mark says. After I killed Thrag. After they swore loyalty to me. They taught me everything. Every combat technique. Every historical secret. Every genetic truth about our species. He relaxes from the stance. Sits back down. I know things I shouldn't know. I can do things I shouldn't be able to do. And in 3 days, I'm going to Vermont to break my father psychologically before he can complete his mission. You can believe me or not. But either way, Earth needs to prepare for what's coming. Cecil picks up the flash drive, turns it over in his fingers. What's on here that you haven't already told me? Schematics for Flaxen portal technology, biological analysis of the sequids. They won't invade for another 3 years, but when they do, you'll need this. Complete psychological profile of Angstrom Levy and how to prevent his accident. Robot's neural architecture and long-term strategic planning. He's going to try to take over the world eventually. This will help you stop him. Viltrumite combat weaknesses. How to exploit them. Locations of sleeper agents and hidden threats. Mark pauses. And one more thing. In 3 months, Alan the alien is going to arrive. He's a coalition of planets agent. He'll be testing Earth's defenses. Don't kill him. He becomes one of our most important allies in the war against the Empire. Cecil plugs in the flash drive. Starts reading. His expression doesn't change, but Mark can see the tension in his jaw increasing with every page. The file contains information that shouldn't exist. Technical schematics drawn with engineering precision. Biological data analyzed at a level beyond current Earth science. Psychological profiles that read like they were written by someone who spent years studying each subject. Cecil closes the file, looks at Mark. How do I know this is real and not elaborate disinformation? Test it, Mark says. The information about the sequids won't be verifiable for 3 years. But Angstrom Levy is at MIT right now. His research is exactly as I described. Robot's psychological profile, you can verify that yourself by observing him. The Flaxen technology, compare it to the equipment we captured during their invasion. It will match. Cecil is quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you want in return? 3 things. First, operational independence. I'm not joining the Guardians. I'm not becoming a GDA asset. I work with you, not for you. Second, resources. I need access to your research facilities, your satellite network, your global monitoring systems. I'll share everything I learn, but I need to be able to move freely. Third, my father's rehabilitation. He doesn't get arrested. He doesn't get prosecuted. He works with us to defend Earth from the Viltrumite Empire. The immortal stands abruptly. Absolutely not. He was about to commit genocide. He should be in custody. He should be dead, Warwoman adds, by Viltrumite law, by human law, by any reasonable standard of justice. Mark looks at them. I understand your anger, but you're thinking short term. The Viltrumite Empire is going to respond when Nolan stops reporting. They'll send investigators, then warriors, then a full invasion force. When that happens, you'll want a Viltrumite on your side who knows their tactics, their weaknesses, their strategic thinking. We'll have you, the immortal says. I'm half human, never trained in the Empire, never served in their military. Nolan has. He's 2,000 years old. He knows things I don't. He's valuable. If I can turn him, first, we need to see if you can actually turn him. You said 3 days? Yes. I'm going to Vermont, to the safe house Nolan maintains there. I'm going alone. Like hell you are, Warwoman says. He could kill you. Mark smiles without humor. He could try, but I've fought and killed opponents that would destroy him. I've got this. Cecil stands, walks to the window overlooking the underground facility. I'll give you operational independence. I'll give you access to resources within limits. But Omni-Man stays under surveillance every second, and if he makes one wrong move, I put him down. Permanently. Fair enough, Mark says. But Cecil continues, you give me everything, every piece of intelligence, every threat assessment, every move you make, full transparency. The moment I think you're holding back or operating your own agenda, this deal is over. Mark considers this. It's not ideal. Full autonomy would be better. But Cecil is right to be cautious. Trust has to be built. Deal. They shake hands. Cecil's grip is firm, testing. Don't make me regret this, kid. I'll try not to. 3 days later, Mark flies to Vermont alone. The safe house is remote, deep in the mountains. No roads, no power lines. Just wilderness and a cabin that Nolan built decades ago as a bolt hole. Somewhere to retreat if his cover was ever blown. Mark lands in the clearing outside. The cabin is small, rustic, smoke rises from the chimney. Nolan is inside. Mark walks to the door, doesn't knock, just opens it. Nolan is sitting at a table staring at nothing. He hasn't shaved in 3 days, hasn't changed clothes. He looks up when Mark enters. You came, Nolan says. His voice is flat, empty. I said I would. Mark closes the door, sits down across from his father. They stare at each other for a long moment. I've been thinking, Nolan says finally, about what you said, about the original timeline, about what I did. He pauses. Did I really kill them, the Guardians? Yes. In 6 minutes. Red Rush first, you crushed his skull while he was moving at super speed, using his own momentum against him. Then Darkwing, you snapped his neck. War Woman, you ripped her mace from her hands and beat her to death with it. Green Ghost, you phased your hand through her chest while she was intangible. Martian Man, you tore him in half. Aquarus, you drowned him in his own water powers. Mark's voice is clinical, detached. The immortal you saved for last, he was the hardest to kill. You had to decapitate him. Even then, he didn't truly die. His body regenerated months later. But by then, the damage was done. Nolan's hands are shaking. And after? What happened after? You went home, showered the blood off, came back confused and horrified, played the grieving teammate perfectly. For months, you manipulated me, trained me, shaped me into what you wanted. And then, on a rooftop, you told me the truth, told me humans are like pets, like insects, that I needed to help you prepare Earth for conquest. And you fought me. I fought you, and you broke me, shattered my ribs, ruptured my organs, destroyed half of Chicago, killing thousands of people to prove your point, and then you left, flew away, spent years in exile, regretting what you'd done but unable to take it back. Nolan closes his eyes. I don't know if I can believe this. It sounds like insanity. Attack me. Use everything you have. I'll show you exactly what 500 years of training looks like. They stand in the clearing, snow falling gently around them. Father and son, Viltrumite and half-breed. Are you familiar with the Dakari technique? Mark asks. Nolan's eyes widen. I've heard of it. Ancient Viltrumite martial art, lost when most masters died in the Scourge virus. Only the oldest warriors still remember it. They taught me, Mark says. He settles into the stance. Perfect form. After I killed Thrag and took the throne, the elder Viltrumites swore loyalty, taught me everything they knew, every combat technique, every secret. Mark's voice is calm. Teaching. The Dakari philosophy is about economy of motion, using your opponent's strength against them, targeting pressure points that even Viltrumites feel. Watch. Movements flowing like water. Strike, block, redirect, counter. Every motion is precise, efficient, beautiful in its lethality. Nolan recognizes the forms. He's seen them before, 2,000 years ago, before the Purges, when the Viltrumite Empire still had culture, still had art. Attack me, Mark says. Nolan hesitates. I could kill you. You could try. Nolan lunges forward. He's not testing anymore. He's using full Viltrumite combat speed. The kind of speed that turns air into plasma. The kind of strike that has shattered planets. Mark sidesteps, uses Nolan's momentum against him, applies the joint lock from Dakari Form 7, hyperextends Nolan's elbow. Nolan gasps, tries to pull away. Mark releases, steps back, waits. Again, Mark says. Nolan attacks, combination strikes, high-low middle, feints and real attacks mixed together, 2,000 years of combat experience compressed into 3 seconds of violence. Mark blocks, deflects, counters. Every movement is textbook Dakari. He's not relying on raw power, he's using technique, precision, knowledge. They fight for 30 seconds. Nolan lands 3 hits that would pulverize mountains. Mark takes them, absorbs the impact, uses the kinetic energy to fuel his counterattacks. Then Mark strikes, 1 hit. Perfectly placed, Nolan's solar plexus, the nerve cluster that even Viltrumites feel. Nolan doubles over. Gasping, Mark could kill him right now, decapitate him with 1 strike. Instead, he steps back. How? Nolan demands when he can breathe again. Even if you're telling the truth, even if you're from the future, you're in a 17-year-old body. You've had powers for 3 weeks. You shouldn't be this strong. My powers manifested when I was 11, Mark corrects. I've been secretly training for 6 years, pushing my body to its limits every night, breaking bones and watching them heal, testing durability, speed, flight capability. I've been preparing for this confrontation since I was an infant. Mark walks to the cabin porch, sits on the steps. After a moment, Nolan joins him. You're not Viltrumite, Nolan says quietly. Your fighting style, your philosophy, even your physical presence, you feel other. I'm half Viltrumite, Mark corrects. Half human. In the original timeline, that was my shame. I tried to be pure, more Viltrumite than the Viltrumites. I conquered. I killed. I became exactly what the Empire wanted. He looks at his father, and it destroyed me. By the time I realized what I'd become, everyone I loved was dead. Mom, Eve, Oliver, your other son from Thraxa, even you, eventually. All dead while I sat on a throne built from bones. I have another son. Nolan's voice is strained. In the original timeline, after you left Earth, you went to Thraxa, met a woman, had a child. Oliver. He grew up fast. Thraxan biology, became one of the finest warriors I ever knew. But in this timeline, that won't happen. Because you're not leaving Earth, you're staying to help defend it. Nolan is silent for a long time, processing. Then, even if I believed you, what do you expect me to do? Betray the Empire? The Viltrumite race is my people, my heritage. Your people are 50 paranoid murderers clinging to a dead ideology, Mark says. Let me tell you about the Empire you serve. He stands, begins pacing. His voice takes on the cadence of a lecture, an emperor teaching history. Viltrum was once beautiful, billions of Viltrumites, diverse philosophies, genuine culture, art, science, philosophy. Then the warrior caste staged a coup. They argued that only the strong deserved to rule. They purged the scientists, the artists, the philosophers, killed billions of their own people in genetic culling, destroyed Viltrumite civilization in the name of purity. Nolan's fists clench, but he doesn't interrupt. Then came the Scourge virus, a weapon created by the very people the Empire had been oppressing. Targeted Viltrumite DNA specifically, killed 99.9% of the remaining population. The survivors were the strongest warriors, the very people who had destroyed Viltrum civilization in the first place. Faces his father, Thrag, your Grand Regent, is systematically hunting down anyone with genetic impurity, anyone who questions his authority. You're one of the older generation. He sees you as disposable. Your mission to Earth is as much about getting rid of you as it is about conquest. That's not it. In my original timeline, after you left Earth, Thrag tried to have you killed, multiple times. You only survived because I intervened, because your half-human son saved your life. Nolan stands abruptly, walks away. I can't. You can't reconcile it, Mark says. Because your entire programming tells you I'm lying, that humans are inferior, that the Empire is supreme, that your mission is righteous. But deep down, you know I'm telling the truth. He walks over to his father. You've spent 40 years on Earth, living among humans, forming bonds, experiencing love. Why do you think the Empire waited so long to activate you? Because they needed to be sure Earth was viable. Because they hoped you'd forget, Mark interrupts. Viltrumites live thousands of years. 40 years is nothing, but they knew that living among humans, forming attachments, experiencing genuine emotion, it could compromise you. That's why they waited until I got powers, They needed a trigger strong enough to override your attachment. Nolan turns around. His face is anguished. I don't know how to reconcile this. I don't know who I am anymore. You're Nolan Grayson, Mark says. Husband to Debbie, father to me, guardian of the globe. You've spent 40 years building a life here. You love this planet. You love these people. That's real. That matters, but I was sent here to destroy it. You were. But you don't have to. The Empire's orders aren't absolute. You can choose. That's what makes you different from them. That's what makes you better. Nolan sinks down onto the porch steps. He looks old, tired. I need proof, real proof, not combat techniques or historical knowledge, something only you could know, something that proves you're from the future. Mark sits beside him. On Viltrum, before you came to Earth, you had a wife, Andressa. She died in the initial Scourge virus outbreak. You've never told anyone on Earth about her because it would raise questions about your past. Nolan's head snaps up. How could you possibly, after everything else had happened, after the battles, after the reconciliation, you were dying and you told me about her, about how guilty you felt, about how loving Mom felt like a betrayal. Nolan's face crumbles. For the first time in perhaps centuries, tears form in Omni-Man's eyes. She made me promise, Nolan whispers, when she was dying. She made me promise I'd keep living, that I wouldn't let grief destroy me, that I'd find happiness again. I know, Mark says softly. And you kept that promise. You came to Earth. You fell in love with Mom. You had me. Andressa would be proud of what you built here. Nolan stands abruptly, walks away. His shoulders shake. Mark gives him space, lets him process. When Nolan finally turns back, his eyes are red, but they're clear. What do you need from me? Nolan asks. Mark stands. I need you to be my father, not Omni-Man, not a Viltrumite soldier, just my dad. Can you do that? Nolan looks at his son, this impossible ancient 17-year-old emperor. I can try. They return to Earth together 2 hours later. Mark contacts Cecil via encrypted channel. I'm bringing Nolan in. He's cooperating. We need to talk, all of us. Define cooperating. Cecil's voice is cautious. He's not going to complete his mission. He's going to help defend Earth instead. But we need to establish protocols, rules of engagement. He's a 2,000-year-old Viltrumite warrior. You can't treat him like the genocidal alien spy he is. That works too. We'll be there in 20 minutes. They land at GDA headquarters. Cecil is waiting with a dozen tactical teams. The Immortal is there, War Woman. Every available Guardian, they're ready for a fight. Nolan raises his hands. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to surrender, conditionally. Viltrumites don't surrender, the Immortal says. His axe is drawn. This one does. Nolan's voice is steady. My son has convinced me that my mission is wrong, that the Empire I serve is dying, that Earth deserves a chance to defend itself. I'm offering my services as a military consultant, strategic advisor, Viltrumite combat specialist. Cecil lights his cigar. In exchange for what? Freedom. Supervised, monitored, restricted. But not imprisoned. I stay on Earth. I help prepare for the coming war. And I try to be the father my son deserves. You were about to murder the Guardians, War Woman says. Her voice is ice. Why should we believe you've changed? Because I told him what happens if he doesn't, Mark interjects. I told him about the original timeline, about the guilt, the exile, the years of regret. I told him that in the end, he chooses Earth anyway. I'm just giving him the chance to make that choice now, before people die. Cecil studies them both. I want full disclosure. Everything, Viltrumite military structure, combat tactics, weaknesses, technology, strategic objectives, everything you know about the Empire. Agreed, Nolan says. And you wear a tracker. 24/7. Miss one check-in and I deploy countermeasures. What kind of countermeasures? The kind that will kill you before you can react. I've had contingencies in place for you for years. Sonic weapons, atmospheric disruptors, orbital strikes. You take one step out of line, I put you down. Nolan nods slowly. Fair enough. The Immortal isn't satisfied. This is insane. He's a threat. He should be in custody. He's also our best source of intelligence on the enemy, Mark says. When the Empire responds, and they will respond, we'll need every advantage. Nolan knows their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. We'd be fools not to use that. Cecil makes the decision. Probationary status, you work under GDA supervision. One wrong move and we end you. Understand? Understood. Good. Cecil pulls out a briefcase, opens it. Inside is a collar, sleek, black, technological. Put this on. Nolan examines the collar. What does it do? Tracks your location, monitors your vitals. And if I push this button, Cecil holds up a remote. It generates a localized sonic field that will incapacitate you. Non-lethal, but extremely painful. Call it insurance. Nolan puts on the collar. It locks with a quiet click. There, Cecil says. Now we're partners. Conditionally. There's more we need to discuss. The flash drive I gave you, have you reviewed it? Angstrom-Levy's research matches your description. The Flaxen technology is consistent with what we captured. The rest, Cecil shrugs. We won't know until the events you predicted occur. Then let me give you a timeline, Mark says. 3 months from now, Alan the alien arrives. He's a coalition of planets agent. He'll test Earth's defenses by fighting Dad. Don't kill him. He becomes an important ally later. Coalition of planets? The Immortal asks. Alliance of alien species opposed to the Viltrumite Empire, Nolan explains. They've been at war for centuries, losing badly. Earth isn't on their radar yet because we're too primitive. But after I stop reporting, they'll start paying attention. Good, Cecil says. We'll need allies when the Empire comes. Mark continues. 6 months from now, Robot is going to propose a mission to the Flaxen dimension. Don't let him go alone. He'll spend subjective years there and come back different, darker. It's the beginning of his descent toward the coup attempt I warned you about. We'll monitor Robot closely, Cecil confirms. 1 year from now, the Sequids invade. They're parasitic organisms that take over host bodies. The invasion will be subtle at first. 1 person, then 2, then exponential growth. You need to establish quarantine protocols now. I've included their biological signature in the files. Start screening for it. Cecil makes notes. Anything else? Yes. 2 years from now, Omni-Man's absence will be noticed by the Empire. They'll send an investigator. Probably Anissa. She's one of their elite warriors. We'll need to be ready to capture or neutralize her without killing her. Dead Viltrumites will bring the full Empire down on us. Captured ones can be used for intelligence and leverage. You're talking about a 2-year preparation timeline, Warwoman says. That's a long time to maintain constant vigilance. It's also not long enough, Mark counters. The Empire has been conquering planets for thousands of years. We have 2 years to build defenses that can stop them. Every day matters, every resource counts. All right, here's how this works. Mark, you get your operational independence. You can move freely, access our resources, conduct operations, but you report everything to me. Weekly briefings, full disclosure. You work with our strategic planning division, teach them Viltrumite combat tactics, help us identify weaknesses, but you don't leave the facility without escort. You don't make contact with anyone outside approved channels. You breathe wrong, I push the button. He looks at both of them. This is the deal. Take it or leave it. Then Mark nods. We'll take it. Good. Now get out of my office. I have a planet to fortify. 3 weeks later, Mark stands outside MIT's physics laboratory at 11 p.m. Inside, Angstrom-Levy is working late on his multiversal research. In the original timeline, his experiment goes catastrophically wrong in 4 months, giving him the power to traverse dimensions but fracturing his mind across infinite realities. The accident drives him insane. He spends years trying to kill Mark. That's not happening this time. Mark phases through the wall. He's been practicing molecular manipulation, another technique that shouldn't be possible for someone his age, and appears in Levy's lab. The scientist looks up from his equations, startled. How did you get in here? You might know me as Invincible. We need to talk about your dimensional bridge experiment. Levy's expression shifts from fear to suspicion. That's classified research. How do you know about... He stops, noticing Mark's costume. You're that new superhero. I'm also someone who knows your experiment is going to fail catastrophically in 17 weeks if you don't adjust the quantum field stabilizers. Mark pulls out a tablet, brings up technical schematics, Levy's own designs but corrected. Your current configuration has a critical flaw in the dimensional anchor point. When you activate the bridge, the feedback loop will create a multiversal overlap. Your consciousness will be split across infinite realities. You'll gain the power to traverse dimensions, but you'll lose your sanity. These are correct. How could you possibly? Because I've seen it happen. In another timeline. You became one of the most dangerous beings on Earth, not because you were evil, but because your mind was shattered across infinite versions of yourself, all sharing pain, all sharing rage, all wanting revenge on the person you blamed for your accident. Mark sits down across from Levy. I'm here to offer you a choice. Work with the GDA, use their resources, their facilities. Do your research properly, safely. Develop multiversal travel technology that could revolutionize human understanding of reality. Or continue alone, refuse help, and in 17 weeks wake up in a hospital bed with your mind fractured into infinite screaming pieces. Levy is quiet for a long time, studying the schematics, studying Mark. The GDA will want to weaponize my research, he says finally. Probably, Mark admits, but you'll be alive and sane to argue with them about it. And I'll be there to make sure they don't cross lines you're not comfortable with. I've seen what happens when governments get unrestricted access to dimensional technology. It doesn't end well. Levy looks at his equations one more time. Then, at the corrected schematics, I'll need to verify these calculations. Take your time. But Dr. Levy, when you realize I'm right about the flaw, come find me. Don't try to fix it yourself. The margin for error is microscopic. Mark stands, walks toward the wall. Oh, and one more thing. In the original timeline, after your accident, you blamed me. Spent years trying to kill me across multiple dimensions. It consumed you, destroyed any chance you had at a normal life. I'd rather avoid that, if possible. He phases through the wall before Levy can respond. Mark's next stop is the GDA research facility where Robot works. It's 3 a.m. The facility is quiet. Most personnel are asleep. But Robot never sleeps. Can't sleep. His drone body doesn't require rest. In his real body, the severely deformed Rudolph Connors, kept alive in a sealed chamber in the sub-basement, only needs a few hours of REM cycle. Mark finds Robot in his workshop working on drone upgrades. The mechanical body doesn't react when Mark enters. But Mark knows Robot detected him the moment he entered the facility. "Hello, Rudy," Mark says. Robot's drone spins around. Defensive systems activate. Nothing lethal, but warning lights pulse. "How do you know that name?" "I know you're operating this drone from a sealed chamber 3 levels down. I know your real body is severely deformed, kept alive by machines. I know you're in constant pain, and I know what you're planning." "I don't know what you're talking about." Robot's voice is carefully neutral, but his drones are positioned defensively. "You're going to clone yourself a new body, Rex Splode's body, specifically. You're going to transfer your consciousness. And then, slowly, carefully, you're going to start making decisions for humanity's own good. Regardless of what humans want, you'll build a utopia at gunpoint because you're smart enough to see all the ways humanity is failing and arrogant enough to think you're the only one who can fix it." Robot is completely still now, processing. Mark walks to Robot's workstation, pulls up files, contingency plans, encrypted documents about cloning, population management theories, resource allocation models. You're a utilitarian, Rudy. You genuinely want to help. But you're also convinced you're smarter than everyone else. And you're right, you probably are. But that doesn't give you the right to make choices for 8 billion people. If you're here to arrest me for thought crimes, I'm here to offer you a deal. Work with me. Use that brilliant mind to help defend Earth from real threats, not to micromanage humanity into your version of paradise. I'll help you get a new body, legally, ethically, through proper channels. No cloning, no murder, no replacing the people who trust you. And if I refuse, then I watch you very carefully, and the moment you cross the line from planner to dictator, I stop you. Permanently. The threat hangs in the air. Robot's tactical processors are already gaming out scenarios. He can't beat Mark in a fight. The speed and power differential is too great. He can't outmaneuver someone who claims to know his every plan. "Why offer to help me at all?" Robot asks. "Because I understand you. I became you in my original timeline. I looked at a broken world and decided I was the only one who could fix it. I conquered. I ruled. I made hard choices that I thought were right, and I destroyed everything good about myself in the process." Mark meets Robot's camera directly. "You're brilliant, Rudy. You could change the world, but you can't do it alone, and you can't do it by force. Let me help you find another way. Then, I'll need to see your GDA credentials. If I'm going to work within their structure, I need to know what their oversight looks like. I'll set up a meeting with Cecil tomorrow. And the body? We'll figure it out. Together. The right way. There are options. Genetic therapy, prosthetics, maybe even a willing donor body from someone dying who wants to leave a legacy. We'll find something ethical. When you say you became me, what did you do? Mark's expression hardens. I conquered 17 galaxies, killed anyone who opposed me, built an empire on the backs of billions of corpses, and convinced myself every single death was justified because I was creating order, creating peace, creating my version of utopia. Don't make my mistakes, Rudy. There are no shortcuts to a better world, only long, hard work. Together, democratically, messily, that's the only way that lasts. I'll think about what you've said. Mark's final preemptive strike happens 3 days later. He's been monitoring Robot's workshop, noticed the subtle changes in behavior, the increased security around the clone project, the encrypted communications. Robot is going to try something. Soon. Mark breaks into the workshop at 2 a.m. Robot is waiting for him. I wondered when you'd come back, Robot says. You're not stopping the clone project, Mark observes. You're accelerating it. I've thought about what you said, about ethical alternatives, and I've concluded that your concern is noted but overruled. My research continues. Mark sighs. Then we have a problem. No, you have a problem. I've been preparing. The workshop security systems activate. Not the warning lights from before. Full combat mode, automated turrets, electrical nets, knockout gas, every defensive measure Robot has been building for years. Mark doesn't move, just stands there as the weapons deploy around him. You think this will stop me? Mark asks. I think it will slow you down long enough for me to implement Plan B. Which is? Leverage. I have detailed files on your mother, her schedule, her vulnerabilities. If you interfere with my work, I'll make sure she knows exactly what her son has become. What you really are. A time-traveling tyrant playing at redemption. Mark's expression goes completely cold. You're threatening my mother. I'm establishing boundaries. You stay out of my business. I stay out of yours. For a long moment, Mark doesn't move, doesn't speak, just stares at Robot with eyes that have seen civilizations burn. Then he moves, faster than Robot's sensors can track, tears through the turrets like paper, rips the electrical nets apart with his bare hands, walks through the knockout gas without slowing. He grabs Robot's drone body, lifts it up. Listen carefully, Rudy. I've ruled an empire. I've tortured people for information. I've done things that would make you vomit if you had a stomach. I came back to this timeline to be better, to save people instead of conquering them. But if you threaten my family, I will forget every lesson I learned. I will become the Emperor again, and I will make you suffer in ways your brilliant mind cannot imagine. Mark sets the drone down, gently, deliberately. So here's the new deal. You stop the clone project. You work with Cecil on ethical alternatives. You never, ever threaten my family again. And in exchange, I don't tear you apart and find your real body and make you watch while I dismantle it piece by piece. Robot's camera is shaking slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? You've seen the files on the original timeline. You know what I became. Do you really want to test whether I'm bluffing? We'll talk to Cecil tomorrow. Together. We'll find you a solution that doesn't involve murder or extortion. Understood? Understood. Mark turns to leave, pauses at the door. And Rudy? I meant what I said earlier. You could change the world. But threatening people isn't how you do it. Remember that. He leaves. Robot sits in his destroyed workshop processing the encounter. For the first time in his life, Rudolph Connors is genuinely afraid. 6 months pass. Earth changes. Quietly at first, then obviously. The GDA expands its operations globally. Cecil has carte blanche from world governments. Mark's intelligence has proven too valuable to ignore. New facilities are constructed underground. Defensive satellites launch into orbit. Sonic emitter grids are installed in major cities. Angstrom Levy joins the GDA Research Division. His multiversal studies advance safely under supervision. He's grateful, alive, sane. He and Mark develop a cautious friendship built on mutual respect and the knowledge that Mark saved his life. Robot works under probation, developing defensive technologies instead of pursuing his clone project. He's bitter but contained, monitored 24 hours a day. The contingency plans are deleted. The unethical research is dismantled. He focuses on what he does best, making Earth safer through engineering. Nolan trains GDA operatives in Viltrumite combat tactics, teaches them pressure points, weaknesses, strategies. He wears the collar every day, never complains, never tests the boundaries. He's trying, that's all Mark asked. But the Empire has noticed. Nolan Grayson stopped reporting 6 months ago. His mission was simple: manifest Mark's powers, eliminate Earth's defenders, prepare for occupation. None of that has happened. Just silence. The Empire sends Anissa to investigate. Mark is in his bedroom when the alert comes through. 11:47 p.m., his encrypted GDA phone buzzes. Cecil's voice is terse. "We have incoming. Viltrumite thermal signature. ETA 4 minutes, Anissa," Mark says. "He's been expecting this. Planned for it. Scramble the atmospheric trap. I'm on my way." "Already active. Mark, she's coming in fast. Mach 7 and accelerating. This isn't reconnaissance. This is hostile approach." "Good. Let her come. We're ready." Mark pulls on his costume. Not the crude homemade version anymore, but GDA-designed tactical gear. Reinforced, functional, professional. He flies out his window. Below, Debbie is in the kitchen making tea. She doesn't know what's coming, doesn't know her son is about to fight a Viltrumite warrior who's conquered dozens of worlds. Mark lands in the front yard 30 seconds before Anissa arrives. She descends from the sky like a meteor, impacts the lawn with enough force to crater the grass. She's wearing full Viltrumite combat armor, red and white, marked with imperial insignias. Her expression is contempt mixed with curiosity. "Nolan," she says in Viltrumite. Not a greeting. A summons. "Why have you not reported?" The Empire requires. She stops, sees Mark. Her eyes narrow. "This is the hybrid? He's underdeveloped, weak. This is what delayed your mission. And I'm stronger than I look." Anissa's surprise is visible. Most half-breeds don't learn the language. "You speak properly. Good. Then you'll understand when I say, your father has failed in his mission. The Empire has sent me to complete it. You will both accompany me back to Viltrum for disciplinary action." Anissa laughs. "Child, you don't understand. This is not a request. The Empire, hidden across the neighborhood, sonic emitters come online. GDA technology reverse-engineered from Flaxen equipment, modified specifically for this purpose. They generate a frequency that disrupts Viltrumite equilibrium centers, makes flight difficult and painful." Anissa staggers midair. What is this?" "Welcome to Earth," Mark says. Then he attacks. The punch is perfectly placed. Solar plexus, same pressure point he used on Nolan. Anissa doubles over, shocked. She's a veteran warrior, elite imperial soldier, has conquered dozens of worlds. A teenage half-breed shouldn't be able to touch her. But Mark isn't a teenage half-breed. He's a 500-year-old emperor who spent 6 months preparing for exactly this encounter. Anissa recovers fast. Counterattacks with Viltrumite combat doctrine, brutal, efficient strikes designed to kill. Mark blocks, deflects, redirects. He's not trying to kill her, just disable, drive her down. Keep her in the sonic field. They fight through the neighborhood. The sonic booms shatter windows. Cars flip from the shockwaves. Mark knows the GDA evacuated civilians 3 hours ago. The only people watching are tactical teams with recording equipment. Anissa targets Mark's joints, his spine, his skull, killing blows. Mark absorbs the hits, uses Dakari technique to minimize damage, counters with precision strikes to her equilibrium centers, her nerve clusters, her old injury points. "You fight like you've been trained," Anissa says between exchanges. Blood runs from her mouth. Mark broke something internal. "How?" Anissa is skilled, but she's alone. Against 2 Viltrumites working in perfect sync, she's outmatched. She tries to escape, flies upward trying to break through the sonic field. Nolan intercepts, drives her back down. Mark is waiting with a strike to her spine. Targeted, not lethal, but enough to temporarily disable flight control. Anissa crashes into the street, cracks asphalt. Before she can recover, Mark is on her with the collar. It's GDA technology, same design as Nolan's but weaponized. Generates a localized sonic field around the neck. If Anissa tries to fly or use super speed, the pain will be incapacitating. Mark locks it in place. "You're under arrest by the authority of Earth's Global Defense Agency for attempted invasion and assault." Anissa stares at him with disbelief. "The Empire will not accept this. They will come for me. They will burn this world to—" "Let them try," Mark interrupts. "We'll be ready." They load Anissa into a containment unit designed from Mark's specifications, reinforced steel, sonic dampeners, zero visibility. She'll be taken to a black site facility 4 miles underground. Cecil arrives via teleportation, looks at the destroyed neighborhood, the crater, The blood on Mark's costume. Civilian casualties, he asks. 0. Evacuations were successful. Property damage is significant, but that's secondary. Cecil nods, looks at Anissa's transport. What do we do with her? Carefully, she knows the Empire's current military disposition, their strategic plans where their forces are concentrated. Get everything you can, then use her as leverage. Leverage? Nolan asks. When more Viltrumites come, and they will come, we'll have one of their warriors as a hostage. It won't stop them, but it might make them negotiate instead of attacking immediately. You've thought this through. I've had 6 months to think it through, plus 500 years of experience dealing with the Empire. I know how they operate. The transport leaves. Mark watches it disappear down the street. Nolan approaches. She'll tell them everything. That I've betrayed the Empire. That Earth is defended. That we're preparing for war. Good, Mark says. Let them know. Let them understand that Earth isn't the primitive backwater they expected. That we're ready. That we're not afraid. 1 year after Anissa's capture, Earth is unrecognizable. The orbital defense grid is complete. 300 satellites equipped with kinetic bombardment weapons, sonic emitters, dimensional anchors. Any object entering Earth's atmosphere larger than 10 kilograms. Triggers automated response systems. Robot presents the specifications to the International Defense Council, a governing body Mark helped establish 6 months ago. Representatives from every major nation. The Guardians, Cecil, Angstrom-Levy, Nolan. And Mark, sitting not at the head of the table, but as one voice among many. The grid can detect and neutralize threats within 30 seconds, Robot explains. Holographic projections show the satellite coverage. Combined with ground-based sonic emitters in all major cities, we've effectively made Earth a no-fly zone for hostile Viltrumites. This level of militarization, it's unprecedented. How do we know these weapons won't be turned on us? Oversight, Mark says. That's why we created this council. No single nation controls the defense grid. No single person has absolute authority. Every major decision requires consensus. It's democracy applied to planetary defense. The Russian representative isn't satisfied. And who controls the failsafes? Who has the kill switch if the system is compromised? Cecil answers, distributed control. 5 people have to authorize any major weapons deployment. Myself, the UN Secretary General, the immortal Mark, and 1 rotating council member selected by majority vote. No single point of failure. The debate continues for hours. This is the reality of democratic oversight. Slow, frustrating, full of disagreement. But it's also accountable. Nothing like the Emperor's dictatorship Mark built in his original timeline. After the meeting, the Immortal approaches Mark. Can I speak with you privately? They walk to an observation deck overlooking the underground facility. Below, soldiers train. Scientists work. The machinery of global defense hums with purpose. We're worried about you, the Immortal says. We prevented disasters, built this entire defense infrastructure, but we're concerned about the cost. What cost? The cost to you. You're 19 years old, Mark. You should be in college, dating, living a normal life. Instead, you're running a shadow government and preparing for an interstellar war. When do you get to be a kid? Mark looks out at the facility. I stopped being a kid when I was 3 months old and Emperor consciousness slammed into an infant brain. I've never had a normal life. I don't know what that feels like anymore. That's what worries us. You're making decisions that affect billions of people. You're carrying the weight of multiple timelines. That's not sustainable. Eventually, something breaks. I know. Mark's voice is quiet. I feel it every day. The temptation to just take over. To make the hard choices without consulting anyone. To be the Emperor again because it's faster, more efficient, gets better results. He turns to face the Immortal. But I don't, because I've lived that future. I know where that road leads. So I sit in council meetings and debate and compromise and accept decisions I disagree with. Because that's what democracy looks like. Messy, slow, imperfect, but ultimately more legitimate than anything I could build alone. The Immortal puts his hand on Mark's shoulder. Just remember, you don't have to carry this alone. We're here. The Guardians, Cecil, your family. You can share the burden, but sharing the burden has consequences Mark didn't anticipate. The defense buildup requires resources, money, personnel, technology. That means increased surveillance, expanded GDA authority, restrictions on civil liberties in the name of security. Mark sees it happening, objects, argues with Cecil, But Cecil is pragmatic. You gave me intelligence about existential threats. You told me the Viltrumites are coming. Now you're upset that I'm taking the measures necessary to prepare. Detaining people based on algorithmic threat assessment. This isn't protection, it's oppression. It's survival, Cecil counters. You have 500 years of memories. You know how this story ends. The rest of us don't have that luxury. We have to make choices based on incomplete information, and those choices aren't always pretty. Mark wants to push back harder, but he realizes Cecil is right. He's been so focused on preventing the specific disasters from his timeline that he hasn't been watching the new problems he's creating. The Emperor's mistake, assuming he knows best, making choices for everyone because he has more information, he's doing it again. Mark calls a private meeting with the Guardians. Just them, no Cecil, no council, no recording devices. I need help, Mark says. I've been operating like a general preparing for war, building defenses, preventing threats, making strategic decisions. But I haven't been thinking about what kind of world we're building in the process. War Woman nods. We've noticed the GDA has unprecedented power. You have unprecedented influence, and there's no real oversight beyond the council, which you helped create. I know, and I'm worried I'm becoming the Emperor again, just with better PR. The Immortal leans forward. So what do you want from us? Accountability. Real accountability. I need you to watch me, question my decisions, push back when I'm overstepping. Be the check on my power that I can't be for myself. Red Rush vibrates nervously. You're asking us to oppose you if we think you're wrong. What I could be again. Mark's voice is intense. In my original timeline, no one could stop me. No one dared question the Emperor. And I became a monster because I had no one to tell me no. Don't let that happen again. The Guardians exchange glances. Then the Immortal extends his hand. Deal. We'll be your conscience, your check, your opposition when necessary. Thank you. But, War Woman adds, this goes both ways. You stop making unilateral decisions. You bring us into the planning process. Full transparency. No more secrets. Agreed. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than what he had. Better than the isolation that turned him into a tyrant. 18 months after Mark manifested his powers, Cecil calls an emergency council meeting. We have a signal, he says without preamble. Deep space, 3 objects, Viltrumite signatures, ETA 72 hours. Mark feels ice in his stomach. Just 3? Could be scouts. Could be a diplomatic mission. Could be the vanguard of something larger. Either way, they're coming. The council erupts in controlled panic. Questions, demands for action, proposals for preemptive strikes. Mark raises his hand. Silence falls. We don't attack first. We don't know their intentions. We prepare for every possibility, but we don't start a war if we can avoid it. They're Viltrumites, the French representative says. Their intentions are always hostile. Not always, Nolan says quietly. I was sent here to conquer. I chose differently. They might too. The debate continues for hours. Finally, they reach consensus. Defensive posture, but open to communication. Every weapon system goes to ready status. But they'll try diplomacy first. 72 hours later, the 3 ships arrive in Earth orbit. They're massive, ancient Viltrumite warships, built from technology centuries ahead of Earth's. They hover above the atmosphere, visible to the naked eye, a clear demonstration of power. A transmission comes through. Nolan translates. This is Craig, representative of the Viltrumite Empire. We demand immediate return of our warrior, Anissa. We demand explanation for the failure of Operative Nolan Grayson. And we demand to speak with the hybrid called Invincible. Your call. Mark thinks in the original timeline, this didn't happen. The Empire was too weak after the Scourge virus to mount diplomatic missions. But he changed things. Created new variables. Now he's dealing with consequences he can't predict. Tell them I'll meet with 1 representative. Neutral location, low orbit, no weapons. Just talk. After a pause, the response, accepted. Craig will meet you at designated coordinates in 1 hour. Mark flies to low orbit alone. Below, Earth rotates, beautiful, fragile. The planet he's spent 19 years protecting, the world he's trying to save without becoming the monster who destroys it. Above, the Viltrumite ships loom like predators. A figure emerges from the central ship. Craig is massive, even for a Viltrumite. Older, scarred. A veteran of thousands of years of war. They hover in vacuum, facing each other. You're the hybrid, Craig says in Viltrumite. You don't look impressive. We want our warrior returned. We want to know why Nolan failed. And we want to understand why a half-breed thinks he can challenge the Empire. Let me answer those in order. Anissa is in custody because she attacked Earth. We defended ourselves. As for Nolan, he didn't fail. He chose a different path. He chose Earth over the Empire. They serve, then your Empire is weaker than you think, because it relies on mindless obedience rather than genuine loyalty. I speak honestly, because I know what the Empire doesn't want to admit. Viltrum is dying. The Scourge virus destroyed your civilization. You're down to fewer than 50 pure-blooded warriors. Every conquest is a desperate attempt to rebuild what you lost. But you're building on violence and supremacy. It won't last. How do you know these things? Because in another timeline, I became you. I conquered. I ruled. I enforced Viltrumite ideology across dozens of worlds. I spent 500 years as Emperor. Mark pulls out a holographic projector, activates it. The image shows a throne room, massive, built from conquered civilizations, and sitting on the throne, Mark, older, harder, wearing imperial regalia. Around him, Viltrumite warriors kneel. I had everything the Empire promises: power, control, dominion. And it was hollow, empty. I became a monster to build an empire, and the Empire wasn't worth the cost. Craig stares at the hologram. This could be fabricated. But you know it's not, because I'm telling you things only someone who lived through it would know. Thrag is paranoid about challenges to his authority. The pureblood faction is fracturing. The Empire is one major disaster away from collapse. Why tell me this? Because I'm offering an alternative. Earth doesn't want to fight the Empire. We don't want conquest or expansion. We just want to be left alone. Give us that, and we'll share technology. Medical research, the genetic diversity you need to escape the bottleneck. Partnership instead of subjugation. Craig considers this. For a moment, Mark thinks he's actually gotten through. Then Craig shakes his head. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser species. It conquers or destroys. That is our way. Then your way is going to get you killed. Perhaps, but better to die as Viltrumites than to live as something less. Craig turns to fly back to his ship. Pauses. I will deliver your message to Thrag. He will reject it. And then the Empire will return with sufficient force to crush this world. I suggest you surrender Anissa and accept occupation. It will be less painful than resistance. And I suggest you tell Thrag that Earth isn't the primitive backwater he expects. We're ready, and we're not afraid. Craig doesn't respond, just flies back to his ship. The 3 Viltrumite vessels power up. For a moment, everyone on Earth holds their breath. But they don't attack. They turn and accelerate away from Earth, disappearing into deep space. Mark flies back to GDA headquarters. Cecil is waiting. So, Cecil asks, they're going to report back. Thrag will send a larger force, maybe in months, maybe in years, but they'll come. And we'll be ready. Will we? Mark looks at Cecil. I've spent 19 years preparing, building defenses, preventing disasters, turning Earth into a fortress. But I'm starting to wonder if we can ever really be ready for what's coming. We do the best we can with what we have, Cecil says. That's all anyone can do. Mark nods. But he's thinking about Craig's face. The absolute certainty, the refusal to even consider alternatives. I was like that once, absolutely certain I was right. Unwilling to bend. It took 500 years and millions of deaths to break that certainty. How many more will die before the Empire learns the same lesson? That night, Mark sits with his parents at dinner. It's the first normal meal they've had in weeks. Debbie made pot roast. Nolan is telling a story about training GDA operatives. One of them tried to wrestle him and got thrown through a wall. It's almost like nothing has. Debbie looks at Mark. She's aged in the past 19 months. More gray in her hair, more lines around her eyes, the stress of knowing what her husband is, what her son is, what's coming. Are you okay, sweetie? She asks quietly. Mark wants to say yes, wants to pretend, but he's tired of pretending. I've spent 19 years preparing for a war I'm trying to prevent. I've built defenses, neutralized threats, changed the timeline. But I'm realizing that every change creates new problems, new variables. I'm not as in control as I thought. That's called being human, son. Or half human, anyway. We make plans, and reality laughs at us. The question isn't whether you can control everything. It's whether you can adapt when things go wrong. And if I can't, you don't have to carry this alone. Mark squeezes her hand, looks at his father, at the family he's trying to protect, the future he's trying to build. I know. I'm trying to remember that. Later, Mark stands on the roof of GDA headquarters, his thinking spot. Cecil joins him via teleportation, doesn't say anything at first, just stands beside him looking at the city below. You built this, you know, Cecil says finally. Not just the defenses, the whole framework, Earth's unified response, the Council, the international cooperation. 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. I had help. You had vision. You knew what was coming and you prepared us for it. That's leadership. Mark echoes. In my original timeline, I called it that too, right up until it became tyranny. The difference is you're giving it up. You could have made yourself emperor, could have demanded absolute authority. Instead, you built a system where you're accountable, where you can be overruled. That's not tyranny, that's wisdom. Mark is quiet for a moment. Then, the Empire is going to come back, with everything they have, and people are going to die, no matter how well we've prepared. Probably. But more people would have died if you'd done nothing. You can't save everyone, Mark, but you can save as many as possible. That has to be enough. Millions of people living their lives, unaware of how close they came to conquest, unaware that a 19-year-old with 500 years of memories built a fortress world around them. It has to be, he agrees. Epilogue, The Guardian's Vow. 6 months later, Mark's 20th birthday. Debbie makes chocolate chip pancakes. Nolan tells embarrassing stories about Mark's childhood. The Guardians stop by with gifts. Cecil sends a bottle of expensive whiskey with a note, for when you're old enough, or when you need it. Whichever comes first. Almost like the life Mark never got to have. That night, he flies to his favorite spot, a mountain peak in Colorado, far from cities, far from people, just him and the stars. He thinks about the past 20 years. The infant consciousness trapped in a helpless body, the years of secret training, the carefully constructed deception, the moment he revealed himself to his father, the allies he's made, Angstrom-Levy, alive and sane, pushing the boundaries of multiversal science, Robot, bitter but contained, channeling his genius into defense instead of conquest, Nolan wearing his collar every day, trying to be the father his son deserves, the enemies he's prevented, the Flaxans repelled before they could establish a foothold, the Sequids their invasion predicted and countered before it began, Anissa captured instead of killed, providing intelligence and leverage, and the war that's coming, the Viltrumite Empire, mobilizing somewhere in deep space, Thrag receiving Craig's report, making plans, the inevitable confrontation between Earth's defenders and an empire that's been conquering worlds for millennia. Mark pulls out his phone, opens the encrypted file Cecil gave him, intelligence updates, satellite data, everything the GDA knows about Viltrumite movements. The Empire is preparing, building forces, positioning assets, not rushing. Viltrumites live for thousands of years, they can afford patience. But preparing. Mark closes the file, looks at the stars. In my original timeline, I faced this war alone, unprepared, naive. I lost everything, everyone. Became the monster I swore I'd never be. This time, I have allies, resources, preparation, a planet that's ready to defend itself, a system of government that's accountable instead of absolute. But I also have doubts. Every decision I make creates ripples, every change spawns new variables. I've prevented the disasters I remembered, but I've created new ones I can't predict. Am I building a better future or just a different nightmare? Mark stands, spreads his arms, feels the wind on his face. I don't know. I can't know. All I can do is keep trying. Keep choosing accountability over power, democracy over dictatorship, partnership over empire. He flies back toward civilization, toward the fortress world he's built, toward the family and friends and allies who've become his anchor, toward the future he's fighting to create. Above, the stars watch, eternal, indifferent. And somewhere among them, the Viltrumite Empire prepares for war. But Earth is ready. The defenses are built, the alliances are forged, the warriors are trained. And Mark Grayson, infant consciousness, teenage hero, 500-year-old emperor reborn, stands watch. Not as a conqueror, not as a tyrant, as a guardian, the way it always should have been. Mark lands in his backyard. 2:17 a.m., the same time he used to sneak out for training when he was 3 years old. But tonight, he's not training. He's just standing in the grass looking at his house, at the window where his parents sleep, at the room where an infant consciousness once woke in terror and made a vow. I will protect this world. I will save these people. I will be better than what I became. 20 years later, the vow still holds. Mark walks to his room, climbs through the window one last time, lies down on his bed. Tomorrow, he'll meet with Cecil about new sequid detection protocols. He'll train with the Guardians. He'll attend a council meeting about resource allocation. He'll continue building the future. But tonight, for just a few hours, he's Mark Grayson, 20 years old, son, brother, friend. Human, and that has to be enough. The Emperor sleeps. The Guardian wakes. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.